Hello everyone and welcome back to another Live at 5. I am your curator, Kevin Atkinson with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research. And today we are back in Saarinen House for another a deep dive into the different materials and artworks and building components that go into Cranbrook's Art Deco gym. Now I am in the owner's bedroom of Saarinen House, where Eliel Saarinen and Loya resided from 1930 to 1951. And we've talked in previous tours about many of these items that you see. And so today I thought it would be fun to focus on their closet. And if you believed me, you've been fooled, because in fact, we're going through the middle door into the bathroom. And this is a pretty remarkable bathroom at Cranbrook. I think it is the most impressive one, but it's also impressive within the context of architectural design, because if you looked through architectural periodicals from just 10 or especially 20 years before the Saarinen House completion date of 1930, you would not really see architect-designed bathrooms. Bathrooms really focused on sanitation. They would focus on cleanliness. They would focus on sort of, the beautiful white tiles, this new obsession with germs and germ theory. And you had sort of lost the whimsy of Victorian fantasy bathrooms, and instead bathrooms had become quite clinical. And so with Saarinen House in 1930, the bathroom again becomes something of a design element, but it has really been modernized into to being a cohesive unit of the house. And so the bathroom has the same Art Deco styling, the same level of detail as the rest of the house, and it's viewed not so much as another private or forbidden space or even a sort of clinical hospitality space, but it's given as much attention as a designed interior as the living room downstairs or the bedroom behind me. It is in this style that always makes me think of the Austrian secessionists and the sort of movements of Otto Wagner and his associates in Austria, Joseph Hoffmann, and thinking of the sort of black and white, here black and off-white series of lines and grids. It's a pretty fabulous interior. And today I thought that we would take a look at the materials that Saarinen used to construct the bathroom, in particular the countertops, which are structural glass, pigmented structural glass. The trade name is Vitrolite. And Vitrolite has a long and fascinating history that we'll dive into some of today. The countertops are 5'11" by 23.5 inches long. They are a single slab of material. And I think it is a sort of fabulous place in which to rest your eye. The whole room is tiled from floor to wall, stalls and all. And the countertops provide this sort of moment of serenity, this sort of single, smooth, cool surface in much the same way that the ceiling surface is this place to rest the eye. And so the ceiling, which is plaster, up to the plaster light fixtures, those are not can lights, those are individual plaster domes with ceramic fittings up above. And so you have the grid of the tile outlined with both the grout and the black tiles, but then your eye comes to rest on the Vitrolite surface. The idea of pigmented structural glass came about in the late 19th century with the first commercially available product launching in 1900. And that product was called Sani Onyx, or sort of sanitary onyx. And so you can see that the makers of Sani Onyx, the Marietta Manufacturing Company in Ohio, were really focused on the way that this was a synthetic stone. And that's really how structural glass was used in the earliest days. You would have found structural glass in hospitals, in laboratories, in industrial food production, because it was even more impervious to germs and disease than marble slabs were. And so it became a material that you could cool through industrial sort of cable cooling techniques, as well as it resisted sort of infection and disease in these institutional settings. It migrated quickly from hospitals and laboratories and industrial settings into bars, restaurants, and bathrooms, again, places where you're going to be focused on sanitation. And finally, in the late 1920s, it became more common to see it in domestic and commercial uses. The Saarinens are really, though, at the very cutting edge of using Vitrolite in their house. And that's because, in part, after the company, the Vitrolite company of Toledo, Ohio, was bought by Libby Owens Ford, also of Toledo, they began to make Vitrolite in multicolors, and Vitrolite became a real sort of festive occasion. And so the Saarinens were using it a little bit before that date. And so they were limited in their color palette. So they're using this ivory, this off-white that coordinates beautifully with the warm tones of the tile, and the black, the black tiles, which do have this wonderful iridescent. None of these are Pewabic tiles. They're also Ohio made, but they do have this very custom glaze and finish that is offset beautifully by the smooth, sort of gorgeously continuous countertop surface. Now, these were installed around the middle of 1930, and it was such a new material, such an unusual material to produce that the contractor, Albert Vermuth of Fort Wayne, Indiana, actually drew up separate contracts for installing the bathroom tiles and the bathroom countertops, which in other Cranbrook buildings that wasn't done, but here the Vitrolite, you know, it was a $720 slab of glass, very expensive to install, very unusual to cut it and to get it ready in the house. And so he was not taking any risk as far as liability about breakage rates. You know, if these broke, the Saarinens Cranbrook would have to buy a new slab. If the tiles broke, well, the contractor had worked that into the amount ordered in the contract. I think it's interesting that when we look straight down on the Vitrolite countertops, you can see that the oval isn't a perfect oval. And so this was cut out by the installer, Mr. Robert Purcell of Detroit. Purcell provided both the vitreous china bowls, which are in the Ivory de Medici color, and then the porcelain bowls, which were custom made for the house, fit into this custom oval cut out. And I really like that it's not a perfect oval, because so much of Cranbrook is about handicraft and hand making. And so I think it's kind of wonderful that the bathroom sink says, aha, this isn't perfect. It is a little handmade. It is a little rough around the edges. Though, of course, just a casual viewer of the bathroom, you would never notice that that oval does show the way that the craftsman had to cut for the sink. Now, one question that we often get is actually, okay, where is the faucet head? You see the knobs are on the wall here, hot, cold, and then the drain closure in the center. And the water actually comes out of this part of the vitreous china bowl. And so it's not like your modern sort of wonderful world of Kohler. It's not shooting the water out in a waterfall. It actually just kind of drips and runs across the basin. So you want to make sure that you keep your sink clean. And it is in the European model, which is instead of having what is called a mixer, where you have a faucet that mixes the hot and cold, it is mixing it, but you're still using it as a wash basin instead of a sink. So you're not going to stick your toothbrush into here. The idea, at least, is that you would close the drain, fill it up with water at the temperature you want, and then drain the water. But you would do all of your face washing and teeth brushing, shaving with a bowl of water here instead of out of the faucet. It's why the only there are 4 versions of this sink at Cranbrook. These don't have water to them at all. As part of the museum, we don't want water going to a room we don't use, so these would not even turn on. But over at Millis House, they have the same sinks. They're still operational, and I know at least the past 2 residents didn't ever really use the sinks because it is kind of gross, and so they would use other bathrooms in the house because we just don't use wash basins in the same way today. Now, the Vitrolite company I mentioned was bought by Libby Owens Ford in 1935. It had another 12-year run where it became very popular in architectural installations. So think about Art Deco movie houses, or a big campaign for Vitrolite was modernizing Main Street. And it would be take your old Victorian building, rip out the first floor, and install a new facade of Vitrolite and plate glass to sort of bring in new customers. So I'm thinking of downtown Royal Oak or Ferndale, my hometown of Marietta, Georgia. They all have Vitrolite facades. They're often attached with, it's the structural pigmented glass attached to a cork backing and then hung on a metal flange. And so you actually can save Vitrolite by simply lifting them off the facade. And there's a guy, I think he's in Los Angeles, named Mr. Vitrolite, and he will happily sell you sheet Vitrolite that he rescues from all across the country. Why did it go out of fashion? Well, it was the last glass to be manufactured in a more traditional way, where it was blown into giant, like 4-story tubes of molten glass, or 2-story tubes, I don't know how tall, bigger than me. And then it would be tilted over in a tube of glass, cut across the middle, and left to unfold as a molten sheet. And what happened during World War II was that modern glass production went into a linear pour. And so the glass would simply be created and cut into sheets. And there was no way to get the structural glass properties of Vitrolite into that modern production method. And so what happened was Pittsburgh Plate Glass, PPG, which manufactured its own version of pigmented structural glass called Carrara glass, again that relationship of structural glass to stone. PPG bought Vitrolite. And so Vitrolite, which had advertised itself for years as better than marble, a more sanitary, a more beautiful solution, an architectural solution, every iteration of it, whether it was Sani Onyx, Vitrolite, or Carrara glass, was now owned by PPG. What do you do if you own an entire market and the production is expensive, dangerous, and old-fashioned? You simply close the brand. And so Vitrolite actually was still quite popular with architects, but for PPG it was cheaper to simply kill the entire genre of material. A sad end to a wonderful architectural product, a great sort of miracle product of the early 20th century. So I hope you enjoyed this look into our Vitrolite countertops in the Saarinen house bathroom. Mrs. Saarinen always kept a red flower on her countertops, and I think that you can see the way that the red rose, which is a permanent botanical, or fake plant, really does liven up the interior to put that one pop of red. I think it's a testament to both Loya Saarinen's dedication to housekeeping, that multiple people remember her always getting her red flower for the bathroom, but also her sense of color and knowing exactly what little flower or little thread would bring a room to life. The other things, the Irish linen and some of the period face creams that all date to World War II, were selected through research into period products, but those are just sort of exhibit furniture. The one material that I do know Mrs. Saarinen used, her grandson told me that she always used Lux toilet soap. And it does have a very distinct, a very lovely floral scent to it. And so I was able to procure that from eBay, and I leave out Mrs. Saarinen's favorite hand soap on the counter. And of course, as the head of Studio Loya Saarinen, it was always within her capabilities to commission her own hand-woven rugs. And so Loya designed this bath mat for the house in the early 1930s. This is a 1990s reproduction on the floor. It has all the principles of Saarinen's architectural philosophies. It's related to the next largest hole. It's related to the floor. It has a moment of surprise and delight, these little bouquets of flowers. It has balanced asymmetry with one gray edge and one black edge. She's really committing to the sort of architectural principles of Aliel, bringing them through textiles to every room in the house. And I love the way, as I step out of the bathroom, that the tub really becomes this altarpiece in the middle of the room, where, Frank Lloyd Wright thought showers were uncivilized, and so you have this demonstration of the civility of the bathtub, whereas the shower ends up sort of in its stall and its side, and the toilet, the water closet on the other side. But it's really all about opening that door into the bathtub. I hope you enjoyed this Live at 5, looking at the countertops in the bathrooms of Saarinen House. If you're interested in seeing the whole house, you can either scroll back in time, and I've done some Live at 5 showing you other rooms here at Saarinen House, or why don't you and your friends and family sign up for a Saarinen House tour over at center.cranbrook.edu. We offer tours every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 3 p.m. departing from Cranbrook Art Museum. You can learn more on our website, and you can always message me here on Facebook or email center@cranbrook.edu with other questions and comments. If you have Vitrolite in your home, let me know about it, because I really search high and wide, and it is not that common of a material to see on a bathroom countertop. So I'd love to hear more if you have Vitrolite in your house. And then the next time you're walking up and down Main Street and you see a beautiful teal wall or a beautiful blue wall, and you think, what is that? Is that aluminum? Is that powder-coated steel? Check and see. It's probably pigmented structural glass Vitrolite. Until next time, everyone, I am Kevin Adkisson, curator with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research. I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks, but I will be back on August 18th with a very special Live at 5, so I will see you all then.